All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the PM Therapy Podcast. My name is Mukhtar, and today today we have a special guest, Alana, and I'm gonna let Alana introduce herself. But basically, today we're gonna be talking about Alana's journey, and basically the title of today's talk or today's interview or show is from PM to a VP, right? So I'm really excited to dive right in. Just some quick housekeeping items. Please feel free to use the chat to ask questions, and we will do our best to get to your questions. If we don't do it during the interview, we'll probably get to it towards the end. Yeah, so let's get started. Hello, Alana. How are you doing?
Hi, Mukhtar. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here today and talk to your audience.
No, same. I was looking forward to this episode. So, for those that don't know who you are, could you introduce yourself, Alana?
Yeah. Well, I'm Alahna Anderson, and I am the head of project manager at Porter Novelli, which is a PR agency under the Omnicom umbrella. And so I lead a team of project managers, and we're kind of in an interesting spot at Porter Novelli. So we are really bringing and opening up the PMO and building my team. And it's an interesting time to bring in project managers into PR. And as we're evolutionizing with change management and really trying to move the needle on bringing project managers into these work streams. So it's an exciting time. And it's something that I love and really love seeing how things are changing and evolutionizing in the world and between marketing and how everything's changing between AI and how it used to be with digital and social. And it just seems like every 7 to 8 years, there's just this huge leap of different type of technology. So it's
Hmm.
great that the PMs are at the forefront of that learning. So that's what I do. I'm the head of the project management team and great opportunities and work.
Yeah, no, amazing. There's so much there that I want to get into, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. So let's take a step back. So let's go to the very beginning. And for the audience, I want to go through Alana's journey in three phases, right? So early period, the middle period, and then where she is at right now. So, Alana, why don't we go back, to the very beginning, um,
Yeah.
before you became a PM? How did you start your career, and what were you like then?
Well, it's interesting, right? So when I came out of college in 2007, we were at the crux of, like an economic collapse. Everyone's being laid off. You can't even get a job. So at that time, I applied to 331 positions. I had no desire, didn't even know anything about marketing or advertising, didn't even go into that field for school, but landed out of 13 interviews out of the 331 applied positions. I landed a job as a receptionist at starting at BBDO, which then, 3 months later, I get a promotion and I am the assistant to all the SVPs on the account team at BBDO in Minneapolis. And that opportunity really opened my eyes to this opportunity because we were coming into a world of the web. What is SEO? What is SEM? And oh, wait, now Facebook is now live to the public. And it was only just for colleges. Now there's this opportunity to advertise to a whole new audience in a different way. And so I took that opportunity to really learn more about what is digital, what is social, and how is that different from the paid world in marketing, and started diving deep into that and getting into development. And we're coming out of an age of HTML and getting into Python and all of the different development opportunities on the web. And so that was, for me, I saw it, I ran with it, and worked through that, which then got me to Russell Herder as a digital coordinator. So I worked through, PPC campaigns, SEO, and more of that was just working on the timelines and learning the back end and the front end of the development of all of that. And how do we bring that to execution? Which then, again, we're in an economic collapse. So everybody's getting laid off, business are shutting down. And so, unfortunately, at Russell Herder, I was a part of those transitions. And so I transitioned over to Wonderman, which is a WPP agency where I worked at Best
So,
Buy.
sorry,
Go ahead.
Alana. Just
Yeah.
quickly, what's a WPP agency?
So WPP is Wonderman Thompson Agency. And so it was another advertising agency similar to BBDO, but with another holding company, which is a WPP holding company. And so they had an account at Best Buy here in Minnesota. And I jumped over there to learn more about email marketing. Because another avenue, email's been out for a while, but how do we creatively get folks to open that? How do we get in and think creatively with titles and headlines and what's in the body of the copy? And now we have animation and tied to social and digital. So that was another area that I learned. And then again, still in an economic crisis, right? So then, unfortunately, when Best Buy had to lay off all of their folks, I was a part of that at Wonderman Thompson and took a little sabbatical, like a 3-month sabbatical, just to figure out what do I want to do, reset. And I landed this wonderful opportunity at Target as a project manager in specifically just project management. And there I was able to sit on the marketing team as a project manager and learn more instead of just the agency side. Now I've moved to the client side. And you get to learn all the intricacies between what is the client doing? How do they get to their marketing strategy? What does that real budget look like? And how is that distributed across all of their departments? And working with the agency from a different side to learn more of that client aspect and differently as a project manager. So you're really managing the overarching marketing and your department. So that was interesting because then you're really opening up. Instead of being on a couple projects on the agency side, you're now opening it up to 36 projects that you are really in and diving deep and owning different budgets. And you have a core team, but now your core team is on the agency side. So you're working with your strategists, your creative, your account teams in a different aspect that I never thought that I would get into. And so that really opened my eyes to project management, really, and wanting to just stay in there because I don't have to make the big idea strategy anymore. I get to really just own how are we going to get that strategy done and how are we going to execute it. And so that was a great opportunity where I worked in licensing, so working on some of the biggest campaigns at Target, where I had this opportunity to work on Star Wars. And I tell you, that was a very exciting project, and very eye-opening to how things really happen on the Disney World side of things. And then, working on the apparel side as well. So bringing new brands and opening up new brands at Target to going out and shooting these new products, working with China and getting all the stuff manufactured so that we have it in time for a shoot. There was so many things that I learned there and great opportunities that I don't think I would have gotten anywhere else. Especially when you're working with celebrities, you get to work with big names I've worked with, oh gosh, when we launched Lily Pulitzer, that's a big name. We got to launch that. And then working with Jamie Foxx when Annie came out and there was a new movie about Annie, so that was great. So there was just an opportunity of working with all sorts of different partners, and usually you just have a core team. From a Target side, I was managing close to 150 people, from the production side to the manufacturing side to marketing to creative. So it was great to see that breadth and just seeing how much you can actually challenge yourself within the amount of people you're working with, to the budgets, and making sure that you're staying within those constraints and making sure that we're getting out to the consumers as we promised with all of our advertising. So that was definitely a big challenge across all of those,
Mhm.
but it's been it's
Yeah,
been a fun world to work in.
yeah. No, for sure. This is really amazing. So I'm just going to go back a bit and just
Yeah.
try to fill in some of the gaps. So, what did you study? And yeah, so because you started out with, okay, you finished, you applied to about 331 roles. So, what did you study at first?
I went to school for English and art history. So, I mean, there's kind of a little bit of a realm in there into marketing, but
Yeah.
did not go strictly for marketing or communications at all.
Okay.
And it was more about being a writer, with just analytical type of writing, and not into this like deep, what is a good headline or a copy? What are the things that you would look for? For the writing that I went for was more research based
Yeah.
and hoping to be some sort of, I didn't know what I wanted to do. First, I thought I'd be a teacher, and I did student teaching before
Mm,
I graduated. And then that I stopped, and I'm like, I kind of want to break the monotony, right? I think while teachers, they're so great and the job is so respected, I needed something that was going to change daily. And I do love change. And I think that's why I'm in project management, is because we are always evolutionizing
yeah.
and always up against change, because it seems like every second we take a breath, there's a new thing that's changing. And we have to learn that. And I think that's why we, as project managers, do so well at our job, is because we are so nimble and we can just adjust quickly to
Mhm.
everything that's happening, as
Yeah.
well as having a positive attitude, right? I mean, even though we may be melting in the inside and screaming, we always just show up with a positive smile, like, it's okay. It's going to be okay. We got this. We'll get it done.
Yeah, no, for sure. I can totally relate. So you started out, as a receptionist. You got promoted to an assistant, and then you started to like learn, technology, SEO, SEM, and all of that. What made you do that? Is that was did you just do that out of curiosity? Like, what made you? Because you could have just, you know, stayed an assistant. Like,
Yeah.
what drove you to learn all of that?
I think I wanted to keep up with the times, right? There's that saying, like, you never wanna turn into, like, what your parents or grandparents are, and
Mm,
I'm like, "Well, I don't wanna do what they do," even though I respect everything that they do. I was just like, "I wanna get with the times," and my grandma had always told me, um, when she was a kid, her mom would always tell her, "You gotta learn about these things, like, what are these computer things that they're talking about? We like, the no one's gonna use that." So my grandma would always tell me when I was younger, if you wanna do something, learn something about those computers, and I wish I would've, because I could have been, one of the receptionists that could have typed things, and I was a good typer, and I could have, gone into that, but she didn't, and so for me, it was just that curiosity of, like, what's going to happen, and I wanna keep up with the world and what the world's doing, because I think as long as I can keep up with it, there's this great opportunity in my career that I could push, and maybe there's something in there that I could learn and, um, take with me wherever I go. And so, I mean, I think that's kind of how my career happened, is that I did keep up with the times and tried to
mm,
get ahead. And that's something that I always share with my team, is like, if we can get ahead and be at the forefront,
mhm.
we're really going to go far.
Yeah. And because at the time that you were learning SEO and SEM, like that was hot then. Like this was a long
Yes.
time ago. Do you see parallels to what AI is to us right now?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's very similar, right? So I think as project managers, if we are the ones who are not just doing what we're being told with AI, but how can we stretch AI to benefit us? And how can we get ahead of what AI is right now? We will be the people and the departments that those other teams are coming to. You're always going to have those development teams who are great. They know what they're doing with AI. But how can we partner with them so that they too can be ahead of that and get above that? Like if we are the ones that are having AI craft what we need in terms of the narrative and getting ahead of that and what's out there in terms of content, that may be helpful and beneficial. And so some may disagree with me, but I really do think that's one way as project managers that we can stay ahead of the times and that our roles eventually, let's hope not, don't get taken over by AI, but it's something that we can use to our advantage to get ahead of in this current time that we're at. And if we can stay ahead of it, we're always going to be at the forefront and needed in those types of whether it's a campaign or your clients are coming to, and really diving deep into what is a good timeline? What is a good budget? What are the things that we're not thinking about? But I do think that there's this opportunity for us to help us think about what is that long term in terms of that risk mitigation.
Yeah. And, for the PMs that are listening now and they're like, okay, I wanna be like Alana was, back in the day, what would you advise them to do right now in terms of like maybe some concrete next steps to take advantage of this wave?
Stay curious. Always push back, even if you think that pushing back is the wrong thing, and push back on your partners to think harder, think deeper. It may not be something that's needed currently in your current campaign or the project you're working on, but always be curious. Just really be curious and drive those partners to think and stretch beyond what we could. And so I think being that strategic thought partner
Hmm.
always and staying on that is really where you're going to get to that next senior level, because that's where your partners from the other side are not just looking for somebody who can just do the tactical and the execution. They really want a partner who can be that strategic partner and push their thinking. I mean, the unfortunate side about it is, right, I always say we are like the Wizard of Oz. We are the wizard behind the curtain. We always have the great ideas.
Hmm.
We are never going to be, you know, the ruby red slippers and Dorothy. They'll get the credit. You'll get the side credit because you are the Wizard of Oz at Emerald City, but always push them to think harder, smarter, and what can you do differently? Just continue that curiosity.
Hmm. Hmm. That's really good. Going back to, I want to go back to the transition that you made from a digital coordinator to a PM at Target. So that was the next level. How did you make that leap?
Um, I think it was more being strategic about just not taking any position and what did I want to do next. So, really diving into what is important for you. Is developing and crafting the strategy important to you, or is the execution of the strategy important to you? And where I found my happiness was really telling people how to do it, when to do it, who needs to come in. It was just the who, what, where, when, how is what I really loved about that role. So I decided as I got an offer from the Target team was that it's going to be project management, but I didn't have to do that strategy anymore. I didn't have to think, what is the business goal that I'm trying to achieve? And how am I going to do that? And thinking of what are new opportunities. So I'm coming from being curious. What
Mhm.
is SEO, PPC, SEM, and all that digital social to, okay, now I just want to get it done. Because we had a lot of this like thinking and all of like focus groups. And I loved doing that, but I really loved that drafting timelines. What is the scope that we're trying to achieve? Who are the partners that need to be involved? And just the orchestration of that to getting us to our success. And that was what made me really happy, was just finishing it and getting it done and then on to the next.
Okay. So no, that's amazing. So Alana, you land in this role at Target, and this is like bigger in scope. I mean, you said 30 to 60 projects. You're
Yeah.
managing in-house teams, agencies. So this was the first time you doing this. Like, how did you ensure that you were equipped, ready to handle this challenge and also even excel at it, right? Because you mentioned that you were even like on projects with stars and all of that. Like, so yeah, how did you excel? Because you came from a level below and then now you're thrust into this significant position.
I think I just wanted it, right? I just really wanted it. And if you really want it, you're going to stretch yourself really far to get things done and to get things accomplished. And you look around, and I have a very competitive drive. And so I'm looking around and I see everyone just excelling and just thriving at Target. And I'm like, I want to be one of those people. And so it was really just, I wanted it. And I think if anyone out there, if you have that drive, you're going to go get it and you will be the rising star. Um, and I think you also at the same time where I found myself was just really creating those boundaries too of even though I want it, you have to have boundaries as well so that you're not going to burn yourself out.
Right.
And while I was there at Target, I never did burn myself out. I actually really loved my role. I think it really helps when you love the people that you work with because they're technically just an extension of your family. You see them sometimes more than your own family.
Mm,
And so as long as you have those people behind you and they're advocating for you, I think it just makes your job a lot easier.
right. What would you say was the toughest moment in this phase of your career?
I think the toughest moment in that phase was managing all those projects and trying to really open up, like, how do I open up what are different ways to be a little bit more efficient with the way I'm working? And so that's when Smart Sheets started coming out, and that was a new tool. And so trying to get to the forefront of being on that committee of like rolling out this new tool because I saw that again, curiosity of this is going to cut some of my job down in terms of automation, where I don't have to manually enter dates anymore. I just add my durations, add a predecessor, and it does the work for me. And so that I think really trying to find different tools was really hard of how can I find something to keep me more efficient so that I can balance these projects that I'm working on so they don't burn out.
Hmm.
Um, but once I conquered that, it was, I'm ready for the next thing. And the next thing was, I think I'm ready to start managing people. And so I decided to leave Target for a new role, and that was leaving to go to Weber Shandwick.
And just quickly, how long were you at Target for before you
Oh
left?
gosh, probably five years, I believe. Yeah.
Right.
And I left for a hot minute during Target, but I got recruited back after 9 months. And
Hmm.
then I during that 9 months, I worked at a manufacturing side to see, like, being a channel marketing manager and working globally with an agent or not an agency, but a company out in Israel who wanted to enter the US market. And that was definitely a challenging job because now you're working with Amazon,
Hmm.
Target, Walmart, and now you're on the other side. So you have the agency, then you have the client side, and then there's this other side of manufacturing trying to get into those retailers and getting into a big US market versus the market that they had within Israel.
Hmm.
And so after that, Target recruited me back and wanted me to come back and work in their style department, which I did. That was a tough one. We launched 7 brands in 2 years, and
Mhm.
that was a lot of work, but very rewarding.
And
Um,
when you were at Target, were you now managing people?
at that point, yes. So it started to I had a few direct reports, on the freelance side, was able to manage them, and then left after those 2 years because I was like, "I think I've just launched 7 brands in 2 years.
It's a lot.
I'm ready for something else." And so that's where I wanted to take it to the next level and move back to the agency side to work on the army, and that was, like, the most rewarding account I've ever worked on. It was a lot of great work and did have the opportunity to start managing and developing how do we get more project managers into the agency and what makes sense to what accounts do we bring them in and building up our central PM
Hmm.
within they called it the central hub, which was like Minneapolis, Detroit, Chicago, and various Midwest.
Yeah.
Um,
And sorry, was this at Weber Shandwick
yeah,
or Weber
yep,
Shandwick? Okay, okay.
yep,
Um, so at Weber Shandwick, you are also in a people leadership role, right?
yep.
Okay. So what was that transition like going from, an individual contributor to now managing people, managing other PMs? What was that transition like for you?
It was different, very different. But I think as long as you are a people person and you are not there just for yourself and you're willing to develop more people to be better than you, because you have to step outside of now it's just you and
Hmm.
now you have a team. How can you help them be better than yourself? And sometimes that's a hard sense to swallow.
Yeah.
And your sense of pride has to go into your back pocket. And so I always say, kind of a Star Wars reference, but I always say that I just want to be the Yoda to all the Princess Leias and Luke Skywalkers of the world. I just want to build better Jedis than myself. And so when I went into it with that mentality, it made my job a lot easier. And that watching them grow from, just a associate project manager to now they're a senior project manager and that career trajectory was so rewarding for myself
Hmm.
of watching them grow and I was like ready for them to take my job, which means I was on and ready for my next challenge. And so watching them at Weber Shandwick, while we did have some amazing and fun accounts, I had to take a step back from the day to day and do more of those operational tasks, which were managing the overall project, like the account budget versus the actual day to day project. And that was a hard one for me to swallow because you have to like let your sense of control go. And I think as project managers, we like to control everything.
Hmm.
And that was the part where I'm like, I have to just trust my team to do this. And if I can't trust them to do it, we're going to fail miserably.
Yeah. And what kind of projects were you like, for those that are not familiar with Weber Shandwick, what kind of
Yeah.
company is it? What kind of projects do you do?
So at Weber Shandwick, they are a PR agency. And so I'm moving out of the realm of advertising, went to marketing. Now I'm going to a actual channel. Um, So that was very difficult because we were not the lead agency in terms of like the advertising, right? So we would get like the creative strategy from the ad agency and then we would have to build off of that. So it was a whole new realm of like, now I've got to change what my process is from what I'm so used to.
Hmm.
Now we're taking, and I don't want to say a back seat, but we're now not leading the creative to now taking the creative that's already existing or still trying to be solidified. And how do we put that into a PR campaign that makes sense for the account and our clients? So that was a different lens too of like looking at things that we are not the agency of record and not leading. But we did like, I think it comes to why you needed a project manager within PRs, because you're now working with multi-channels. And how do you bring all of this communication across different channels together and working in unison as a team?
Yeah. And Alana, because we have, PMs from all other industries. So I
Yeah.
just want to make sure that, people outside of that space, are really following along. So when you say channels, what do you mean?
When I mean channels, what I mean is like from advertising to creative
Okay.
to earned media,
Gotcha.
paid media, social and digital to influencer. And those are all different things that make up a huge marketing campaign. And then you've got your measurement and your analytics team and your planning teams. So it's really starting to break out this matrix of people
Hmm.
instead of being the lead and then you step out once it launches, right? You
Yeah.
have everybody else go do their own thing. But
Yeah.
now you're really trying to bring all of these people together so that it's seamless and that you're following the ad campaign. But that was very interesting for me to not be the lead and then kind of taking that step back and waiting for the creative to come down.
Yeah. And Alana, so, again, just want to make sure that,
Yeah.
we're carrying everybody along. So, you mentioned you were in advertising and then you went to marketing and then you went to the PR side. For people that are not familiar with this industry, like what is the difference and how do they relate?
Yeah. So from the ad agency, that's more TV related, right? What's going to be broadcasted on, let's just say, we'll give you an example, Super Bowl. What is the Super Bowl ad? Who are we going to have in it? So that actually has a lot of functions of who we're going to bring in. So you're just thinking about this big ad, what's going out in that space. And then marketing is typically on the client side, and they're thinking about what are my business goals? What are the company's business objectives? And how am I going to achieve that? So you're thinking of everything under the moon, from who are we sourcing in term or working with, like, our sourcing team of what is the product that we're going to put out there? What is like the hot item? How are we going to bring that hot item to market? So that's working with marketing and PR and the comms team to our media teams to internal and external teams. So you're thinking of the whole crux of like the marketing department. And then when you go into PR, you're just working on the PR campaign. So that's just one channel and one focus versus the multi-universe of how something's going to go to market.
Okay. And do advertising agencies, do they sometimes work on PR campaigns or are they all usually separate, like advertising agencies and PR agencies?
I think it depends on the agency. There's some agencies who do all of it. They're a full service agency and they can
Yeah.
do all of it. And
Okay.
then, I think with us at Porter Novelli, we can do all of it. We have the capabilities, but
Mhm.
that's why we're a part of a bigger holding company so that there are experts in the field and that we can tap across different agencies. But for us, we are experts in the public relations area.
Gotcha. So just want to make sure that I understand this correctly. So the client has a marketing team and a marketing department, and maybe they have a product that they really want to market, right?
Mhm.
So maybe this client wants to, do something in the Super Bowl. They want to, so they would maybe hire an advertising agency that
Yep.
would work with them. If they want to maybe work on a particular channel, so you mentioned different channels like, social, yeah, and other channels, then they might work with a
Yeah.
PR agency to help them with that channel, or maybe they might work in an agency that does both advertising and PR combined. Did I
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. All right. So just yeah, because we have PMs, in tech, PMs
Oh,
in
yeah.
construction. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. So this is fascinating. I mean, I've never worked in the PR or advertising space. Now, when you mentioned, I heard you say creatives a lot. Creative. So what does that mean?
So when I say creatives, I'm working with our executive creative directors, our art directors, designers, and sometimes you have your developers who are in there who will, whether you're building a website or you're building social assets for Facebook or Instagram, and then those who are actually go out on production and shoot the actual material, whether we're shooting influencers or celebrities or it could, if we're doing something on the healthcare side, out there shooting um, and capturing our patients' stories of, unfortunately, somebody may be living with cancer, and we want to be able to tell that story. So that would be our creative team is working with, your producers, your designers, directors, and bringing all of that to life. So it would just be stuff that you see all the content on social media or whatever you see on TV as ads is something that we've been managing. And I would say that project management is fairly new to PR. It's probably about 12 years old. So it's still, while we are, it may be 12 years old, it's still behind a little bit, depending on the agency that you're at for project managers. And it's something new that we're really trying to get in with like what this industry is doing and really catching up to like that way that the advertising agencies as well as marketing teams have been working through. And so it's a big type of change management um, that has been really been challenging and difficult, but we're starting to see the importances of why we need this and that we can then shift our focuses for the other teams to be what they were hired to do, which was being very strategic in their role and the subject matter experts, bringing in the right people. So if you are, let's say, you are a digital and social expert, that you're finally coming to the table, not have to manage your own timelines and managing your own budgets. You now have one person who's that constant between that whole project and can tell you and the team of like, we have a client meeting on July 3rd, and we all have to have X, Y, and Z prepared. And here's what we're bringing to the table. Here's how much budget we have left. Here's what we need to accomplish after that meeting. And so it's really having just one centralized person to do that position
Mhm.
versus having multiple people managing each of that.
Okay. And Alana, would you say that project management is mature in the marketing space and in the advertising space?
Yeah.
Would you say that? And in the PR space, it's still maturing, right? We're still
Yeah.
on the way there. Now, what would you so first of all, maybe this might be a bit philosophical. Is there a reason for that? Like why is it still early in the PR space?
I just think that our folks have just in the PR space have just always done it and they've always been great at what they've done, that I don't think they've ever realized that you can be even greater if you had a partner just doing that executional and tactical stuff versus you having to do it all and stretching yourself thin.
Hmm.
I don't know if our account teams get much credit because they were doing everything. And
Hmm.
so now that you have a specialized person who can come in and manage your budgets and execute your budgets and um, drive those timelines and ensure that like briefs are getting completed on time and that the right information's in the brief and that when you do get a creative piece back, that whether it's from your clients or internal or stakeholders, that all of that feedback is consolidated to that one person, and then when you get it back and that it's finished, that it's all been checked off of,
Mhm.
oh, you actually missed the, copyright symbol over here. Your PM is kind of QAing all of that information when it comes in so that it's accurate before it goes to any of your, what I would call as your stakeholders, as your account people or your clients, so that you have this one centralized person or team who's managing all of that.
Yeah. A quick question. You mentioned the change management piece. So, what kind of resistance are you facing, and what kind of conversations are you having at the leadership level to get them to see
Yeah.
um, the benefits of having a PM or a PM team?
I think it's hard, right? I think the resistance is that We've always done it and we are really good at it. And so, how we've been combating that is we understand you're great at your role. We're not saying that, what you're doing is bad. But now you have a partner here who can actually really help you and get you to go out and do more of what you're great at. So, really leaning heavily on your strengths. And then you have another person who is just even more amazing at what your challenges are, and you can balance each other out so
Mm,
that you can build the client relationships and you can build that business and you have more time to be strategic
mm,
in the client's approach versus trying to figure out how are we going to get it done, who's going to get it done,
yeah,
and when can we get it done. And so those are the things where I think then the PM can really help balance out that working relationship, and so that you don't have to do it all anymore, and that
mm.
we have subject matter experts in the field who can really help benefit not only just you but the client.
Yeah. No, and what I find is that oftentimes they don't want to do it all. Like they
Yeah.
want to just focus on either the strategic or
Yeah.
the creative side of things. And and as us PMs, I know I really like execution, right? Okay, this is the plan. How do we get you there on time, right? And I think that many PMs love that. So it just makes sense.
Mhm.
Why don't you just delegate that to people that are good at executing strategy and you focus on strategy, right?
Exactly.
Um, Question. Now, for a PM to excel in the PR space or maybe even marketing and advertising space, do they need to have a lot of domain knowledge and domain expertise, like to really understand the space?
That's a really good question. No, I don't think so. I think when I'm looking for project managers, what I'm looking for is just the experience. And are you able to be very nimble and agile in the way that you work? I also look for people who are very direct but collaborative. Because I think there's two different ways there, right? Like you
Hmm.
can be direct and it can come off very rude and condescending, or you
Yeah.
can be direct but yet collaborative. And so, what I usually look for in project managers is you can always say no, but a no should come with a solution.
Yeah.
And so, if you are very solution oriented and very creative thinking, I think you will excel very well in the advertising and marketing area and space because we are always forever changing. And like I said, that's where curiosity has come in because you have to evolutionize with how the market is changing and
Mm,
how advertising is changing. What are the new trends and how do you get above the trends and you start the new trend? Those are the things where I think you really have to strike that balance of curiosity within this role.
yeah.
And, it, you know, it's not like a typical, product launch where it's like we know what date we're going to launch by and we're going to launch by that date.
Mm,
And so this could be, hey, client actually just moved up our campaign by a month. Now what do we do? So you
mm,
have to act fast and nimble and how can you actually get it done and sooner to market? Because there are times where things do get pushed up quite a bit and you're like, how are we going to get this done? And are we going to get it done within our budget? And going to take more resources and you
yeah.
just figure it out.
Yeah, no, for sure. Before we get to questions, so I usually hear this thing about creatives, like managing creatives. Is that really true? Like because on the tech side, it's like okay, developers they have their reputation, but
Yeah,
is that true on the on the marketing and PR
I
side?
would say so. I mean, each department's gonna have their own personalities, and I'm married to a creative, so I I come to work with creatives, and then I go home and I have a creative, and they are just very special, great minds, and you have to love the personality, and there's some that are very hard and difficult to work with, but I think that's why as project managers, we're so great. We're the psychiatrists, we're the mom, we're the dad, um, we are, their therapists. We have to like listen to all of their problems, and all they're asking for us is to give them a solution. So that's why I'm always like, give them a solution. But creatives are great to work with. And I do think that's where, if you get an opportunity to work with some of your creatives, I think that's where your curiosity comes from, is because they are just always like, so what can we do next? What's the next creative thing? Like, how can we, you know, do something better than what Google's doing? Or how can we do something better than, other brands? And that, like that, those are the personalities you kind of need because they just break that monotony a little bit
Mm,
and they're fun. I love
mm,
them. I mean, there's nothing bad I could say about a creative. They
yeah,
just have their personalities.
yeah. No, no, for sure. And correct me if I'm wrong. Um, but with creatives, you really need to earn their trust,
Yes,
right? If you
you
don't
do.
have credit, like it's not easy you know to have credibility with them, and if you don't have that credibility with them, like your life will be hell. But once you
Exactly.
earn their trust, like it is like it's amazing to work with them, right? Is that I know that's the case, like in tech, with
Yeah.
developers and all of that. Is that similar on the
I
other
would
side?
say that's very similar in the creative realm is if you can garner their trust, get to know them outside of just this work level, and when you find something that they're interested in, lean in on that and be more human. And
Mm,
they are, I mean, I'm talking about them like they're robots or something, but um, creatives are, when you get their trust, they're going to come to you for everything. And you are going to be that single point contact of that person. And then that goes up to even their leadership. When their leadership can trust you, they're going to really lean on your department. And I
mm,
would say that's where I've done really well with our leadership at Porter Novelli, especially my creative lead, is I
mm,
would hope, and maybe he's watching this, but is I hope that I have garnered his trust because it really helps the team dynamic get through a lot of those challenges that you're trying to break.
yeah,
And then it does help you when you do have that big win, you're there celebrating as a team and you can say, we did it together. And I would say they really heavily lean on their project managers to really help them because really, again, they're just looking for solutions at the end.
yeah. And you mentioned that the PM, you sort of have to be nimble, and
Yeah.
you tend to be a sponge because you are absorbing a lot of the team's stresses, and you're playing all these different roles. What do you advise PMs, right, that are in that situation? Because like everybody is sort of venting to them, right? They tend
Yep.
to be this sponge. What's your advice to the PM to handle that, and to be healthy
Yeah.
and to thrive in that role?
I think what makes a difference is that you have to have good leaders. And as long as you have really great leaders in your PMO, who are willing to help out their direct reports when things like that arise, that you're there advocating for them. Because at the end of the day, as project managers, we have to listen to everybody else, but we have no one else to go to.
Yeah.
So really trying to, and not to be gossipy, but someone who can sit there and actually listen to what your challenges are and how you're going to combat them, and
Mm,
having that partner to say, hey, I actually went through a similar situation like this. Here's how I handled it.
mm,
Or, hey, we've seen your big wins. How do we celebrate that person? And thinking, I think that just makes a bigger change. As long as you have a leader who can really be behind you and understand what's going on, I think that really helps your PM team. And as long as you're really helping them so that they don't have to listen to everybody all the time, just
yeah.
complain and not be happy, but how can the PM also giving that PM like other ways of working that may benefit the team because they do look to us as their cheerleaders as
Mhm.
well. And how can we uplift them? So thinking of different ideas to really bring that whole core team together to be celebrated.
Yeah.
That's the hard part. Something hard to combat.
Yeah. No, for sure. 100% I agree. I think leadership plays a very key role. Unfortunately, in many cases, um, leadership might not be stepping up to the plate. And I know that, some PMs, they hesitate to even go to to their leaders to to chat about stuff like this. Do you have any advice for somebody in that situation?
I think it's no different than, building trust and loyalty with your creative team. It's something that you have to build with your leadership team
Mhm.
and really getting down to if they're open to it. I mean, as leaders too in this industry, we should get to know our people who are working for us
Mm,
because without them, we could not do our job.
right.
We just couldn't. And so I think it's really important for leaders to really understand their team. What's the team dynamic? I, as a leader, when each person comes into this role in my department, my number one question that I ask them is one, how do you learn? What's the best way you need to learn?
Mm,
Two, what do you need from me? And how can I help you get to that next level?
yeah.
And if I think the big piece is like the learning is, not we as leadership, we can't expect everyone to say, okay, here's some material, read it, now just go do it. We
Mm,
really need to understand, are they hands-on learner? Do they actually do well when they are reading the material, come back with questions, and then help them? Or, do they need to watch a video in order to learn and grasp the concept of what they need to achieve? So I think that's something as leaders we need to do better at is really understanding how do our direct reports need to learn and how can we help them?
yeah. No, that's so important because I know before I fully understood my learning style, like it used to affect my confidence because a lot of times you
Yeah.
just go into a place and then they just give you those docs to read,
Yeah.
and you're reading, you're parsing like text, and for me, like that's a challenge. I would have to maybe my style is watching a video, maybe even watching you do
Yep.
it, and then it can now be reinforced with text, right? So I need to have like different channels, so to speak, but yeah, some people might not know, and they're like, okay, maybe I'm not smart enough, or maybe I'm not cut out for this role. But like you mentioned, like different people have different learning styles, so it's really
Yeah.
understanding that and helping them thrive and succeed. You know, awesome, awesome. So let's get to questions. All right, I'm gonna go through the. By the way, if you have any questions, just a reminder, just please put them in the chat. We'll get to them, if we have time. All right. So Diego is saying, thank you for this. Thank you for coming, Diego. Um, all right. Jill is saying BBY and TGT. That was one of the acronyms you dropped at the beginning. Yeah.
Best Buy and Target friends. Hello.
All right, Bulu. Hey, glad to have you here. Um, Maria is saying PM for life for sure. Let's see. So lots of comments. All right. So Ubo, who said, I totally agree with you, Alana. If you want it, you're going to do everything possible to get it, right? So I think this was back when you were talking about early on in your career, like, you mentioned that you're very competitive. I think this was when I was talking about Target, like what made you really
Yeah.
thrive there, right? Um,
And
yeah.
I think just one even add to that is, not until I got to my early 30s, I lacked a lot of confidence. And I did not have confidence in my ability. That didn't take me until I was about 32, 33 years old, where I needed to just stop, be confident in the work that I'm delivering. And if I was confident, I started seeing that I was leading my work with confidence. And I think there's a big thing as leaders that we need to really lean into, where if we do see something that our team is doing well and excelling at, lean into that to give them the confidence of, hey, you did a great job at X, Y, and Z. Continue that.
Hmm.
But I also believe in real time feedback too. And I think that's where I was able to get to where I am today is that I don't like to just sit there and wait to give you feedback at your 6 or 1 year review. And then let's talk about those challenges. And so you can fix them for the next year. I really like to give my team members feedback in the moment of like, hey, I know that you saw this come from your team. Perhaps you could, and then leading with that of like, let's try to fix that.
Right.
Or asking them, how can you fix it? And what are things that you could do to lead that work with confidence in the future? And I think when you continue to give them that confidence, I think you'll see a really more of that to teams, your team members really wanting to do more and lead more and stepping up. Like I said, my biggest goal as leaders, I want everybody on my team to take my job. I
Yeah.
don't see that as a threat. I think that is the biggest goal that I have is that
Mm.
take my job, please, because then I can be one day closer to retirement and I can do my dream job, which is then gardening and being outside.
Yeah. Amazing. Very selfless view on leadership. So, just going to your point where you mentioned that you didn't always have confidence,
Mhm.
that changed. Were you leading projects even when you were not as confident?
That's a good question. I feel like that my ability wasn't where I would want it to be confident, like where I was like being a confident person. I think when I got to the confidence part is when I worked on the army, is that I felt really good about what I was doing and what I was delivering. But I also think I have to credit it to who my leader was.
Mm.
And so that's how I've been able to shape my career is because she would tell me things of like, "Hey, you're doing a really great job at this. Here's the things that I want you to work on." Because I never got that like, "Here's the things you need to work on" until later. So I didn't know what I needed to be confident at, and I just felt like, "Oh, I'll just do it just to do it." But I loved what I was doing, and I just never had that confidence in myself until I had that right leader who could really show me the way.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's amazing how also in my career, like out of all my bosses, there are usually a few that stand out, right? And they
Mhm.
played a very pivotal role. It's not. I mean, I would say most of my bosses were average or just
Yeah.
like they were not toxic. There were a few that were toxic, and then a few were phenomenal, right? So it's kind of like a bell curve, and those phenomenal, like I still remember them today, and I'm still so grateful.
Yeah,
Is that would you say that's a similar experience that you had in your career?
I would say so. Yes. I think, as project management and like advertising and marketing, they didn't know what to do with us. So I wouldn't say they were toxic, but they just didn't know what to do. And like roles and responsibilities were not established.
Mm,
And so for that, it was just really I had to make what my role was going to be. And that put me in this uncomfortable space of like, am I stepping on their toes? Should
yeah.
they be doing this? So you're questioning everything that you're doing. Um, because I would feel like in the like 2010s to like 2015, it was still this kind of like PM hybrid role. And no one knew how to break out of that.
Mm,
You're like, I don't want to do strategy. I just want to do the execution. And
yeah.
how can I get into that? And so I think when I had my one amazing leader at Weber Shandwick, she really was able to break through those barriers for me. And that's where I really got the confidence of like, you are great at the execution and
Yeah.
you're great at leading a team internally. Let's just keep that going. Let's keep
Yeah.
that drive and move that momentum forward.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, it's amazing how sometimes it takes another person to actually see what
Yeah.
you're good at and then call that out. That's really amazing. So just going back to the questions here, um, the topic should be managing projects and humans at the same time. Nothing prepares you for the challenges that come with that. I agree.
Similar to being a parent.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So Uboho is just giving a shout out. Let me see the actual questions. Yeah, so it seems like there's a lot of just shout outs. People are just echoing what you mentioned, um, building a foundation of trust totally. All right, what a great guest to have. I totally agree. Great episode. Thank you. All right. I think this is an actual question. One point every PM will agree here is you take a breath and something you asked. Oh, I thought that was a question. My bad. This one is a question. All right. How have you handled situations with team members saying no without a solution?
Oh, that's a great one. I always tell my team members, if you're going to say no and you're very passionate about that no, then you have to give them a rationale as to why you're saying no.
Hmm.
And that may not be a solution, but I will always stand behind my direct reports if I see that passion of like, no, we can't do this. But if you give the rationale as to why you can't either move forward with that project or, what are the risks? I think once you explain that risks of the no, your team will get on board. They'll
Mm,
listen to you. And I think that kind of builds into the trust too, is they are looking for that trusted strategic partner.
mm.
So if a no cannot come with a solution, then the no needs to come with a rationale
Yeah.
and the risk.
Yeah. No, I totally love that. Yeah. Just saying no and just leaving it like that, you're just going to earn a reputation of being a difficult person to work with. Yeah.
Exactly, which I never want to hear about from any of project managers, from even those watching. Like, never want to have anyone of any of your partners say that you're
Yeah.
hard to work with because I'm sure you guys are not.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Next question from Austin. At what point did you pivot to own your confidence and what shaped that?
But I think it comes back to leadership. I think as long as your leadership understands your role and what your responsibilities are, and that, you do have that ally and advocate behind you, that will really shape, you know, you as a person. And then I think that will really for you as a person too, as a project manager, will really make you understand what kind of leader you want as well. So
Mm,
maybe you are in a job where you're like, my leader is not backing me. Get to and understand why. Why are they not backing you? What is that holding? What do they want to see out of you? And how can they get that out of you? So I think if you go through those motions of the what's the what, the
mhm.
how, when can you accomplish it? I think you'll start seeing a little bit more trust within your leader too. So I think having open and transparent dialogue is very important
For
as a
sure.
leader.
For sure. All right. So I think that's it when it comes to questions. Alana, do you have time for a lightning round? I know we're a bit
Yeah,
over. Yeah. All right.
absolutely.
All right. Morning person or night owl?
Back in the day before I had my child, I was a night owl, but now I think if you consider 11 PM to go to bed, 11:30, I'm still a night owl.
Night owl. Yeah. What's your superpower?
Ooh, superpower. Gosh, I think my superpower is I can multitask. Um, I'm the most you guys, this is my secret, please, it's getting out to the world. If you were to come to my house and look in my drawers, it's the most unorganized drawer, but I know exactly where everything is at. So I always like to say I'm like on paper and in person, I look very organized and buttoned up, but behind the scenes, I am not. So I think my superpower is yes, I'm great at multitasking. It's all in my brain because I love. I'm on the hockey. I'm like one of our key volunteers for our hockey board. I'm a coach for baseball and was soccer, and I just do it all. So I think the more that I can keep my brain busy, the better, because a bored Alana is not a good Alana.
Nice. So are you the kind of person that like you're able to just maintain patterns and complex things like in your brain without actually putting down on
Yep.
paper? Oh wow. I always marvel at how people do that because like I'm a very like paper. I need to put things down.
Yeah.
But I've met PMs like that. Like there's um I don't want to say her name because I might embarrass her, but she was a colleague, And I used to always love to go to her meetings. Like we were fellow PMs on just different
Yeah.
sides of the program. But like her meetings were like master classes because you would just see her just weave, the complexity and just, attack the different parts of the program, and everything was just in her brain. And it was just amazing. But like I would need like several tools and everything to piece it together. So it was always amazing to just see how she would do that just in her mind. So that's amazing. I wonder how has it always been that way for you, or do you think you just sort of
Yeah,
your
I
mind?
like to be busy. I think I was the same way as a kid. I just don't, maybe it's just my generational, like, parents always kept us busy,
Yeah.
and so I don't know if that's trauma or then that's how I get my trauma out, but yeah, I think I've always just been very busy.
Yeah. Amazing. What's the worst PM advice you've ever received?
Um, the worst PM advice, just do your job and don't ask questions.
Hmm. Yeah. Bad advice.
Yeah.
Mo- Most interesting project you've ever managed?
Oh boy. There's 2. Like I said, I worked on Star Wars and it was The Force Awakens. And so when all of the stuff was coming out, you know, we had to be so secretive about it. It was so hard. I couldn't even tell my husband like the toys and what the shirts looked like.
Yeah.
That was very interesting. But it was so much fun. And it was great working with all the folks at Disney. And then my other one was actually working with the soldiers, with the US Army, and
Mm.
really just getting to understand them, like, they're just humans like us. We just think they're so robotic and they're there to do one thing, but they're human. And
Mm.
just listening to their stories, that was, like, amazing just to work with them and be, be there with them. It was great.
Right. What's your favorite productivity hack?
Like I said, I'm starting to lean a little bit more into AI and how can I use this to my advantage? And so, um, especially when it comes to recapping things, 'cause
Mm.
like I said, I do keep everything in my head, but if I just need to get a quick recap, I just
Yeah.
send it and have AI recap it for me, and so
Yeah.
that saves me a lot of time.
Yeah, for sure. Biggest pet peeve in meetings?
Oh boy. I just like to get straight to the point, so I try it. I'm working on it, but trying to, let the team do what they need to do, get those little shivers out and, then let's start at like 3, 4 minutes because I've got another meeting to get to.
All right. So you don't do small talk in meetings? It's like,
I try to. I mean, I'm
yeah,
Minnesotan, so I think we thrive at small
small
talk, but
talk.
it's
Yeah.
like
Just 3 minutes, right? Yeah.
3 minutes.
Yeah. Go. Nice. Introvert or extrovert?
I'm definitely an extrovert, but the older I'm getting, I'm starting to notice that I'm turning more into a homebody.
Wow.
But yeah, I think it's because 'cause I'm in meetings all day long and I've been talking,
Yeah.
so need to shut down and watch some Real Housewives or something.
Recharge. Makes sense.
Yes.
One book every PM should read.
Oh gosh. One I mean, if you haven't done The Well-Being with Strength Finders, I think that's a great book to read just to really understand you, and I think, again, that will help you also as an individual become confident to lean in where your strengths are, and then understanding those weaknesses.
Yeah. Amazing. So we're done with all the lightning round. And I know we're over time. There's still some more questions coming through, but up to you, Alana. Do you want to go through the questions, or we can end?
I'm happy to answer some
Yeah.
more questions.
Okay. Let's go through some of the questions. So Melanie, I'm just gonna yes. So Melanie says, how do you handle your direct report saying they can't handle their workload when the expectation is that they need to stretch a little beyond 100% capacity based on resourcing and the state of business? Good question.
That is a good question. I think, well, for me as a leader, we do get this one a lot is that, hey, I'm 120% utilized. How do we reduce? I think as a manager, you really need to find solutions for that team member because if they are very talented and they are skilled, which I think talent and skill are two different things.
Hmm.
And if they're talented and a skilled employee, you really need to listen to that person. And how can you help them and work with your leadership to find another solution, whether that's bringing in a freelancer to help them out, or how can you coach them to utilize tools to help them be more efficient. So we talked a little bit about how I had to find ways of being efficient, which was utilizing smart sheets. And so, really working, if you don't have those tools at your company, really working with your leadership to get those types of tools approved so that it can help. Because I do think if you are beyond 100% capacity, that's a big, big problem and that should be addressed.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And I really like the point you mentioned about, especially if they're talented and skilled, because you run the risk of losing them, right? So you want to keep your best people.
Correct.
All right. So the next question is, how do you handle different stakeholders who have the same intention but have different ways to reach that goal?
I think there's ways to meet in the middle, right? If you guys have the same intentions, there's a way that you guys can work together to reach that goal.
Hmm.
I think finding different ways of working is definitely good. So if you are, let's say, for instance, you have a challenging stakeholder who is also equivalent to the decision making, how do you, again, I think it comes back to that building loyalty and trust,
Yeah.
getting to know them on another level if they're open to it. And that will then open ways of working together to get to that goal and intentions together. And I think if you reiterate them of, hey, you and I have the same goal, we have the same intention, but if you don't want to reach it through this way, can we try this?
Right.
So I think just really, again, coming with solutions is the biggest thing.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Let's see. Is there another question? Yeah, this is a tough one. Ashby says, how do you handle layoffs and during the period? Often in an interview, you're faced with expressions like "we don't need you." Any thought here?
Hmm. I think layoffs are just hard in period, right? I've had to do multiple layoffs with folks before, and it's not an easy thing because you know that their livelihood is going to be impacted. And I think the best way to handle it is to be that person's support person. Like, again, I said, get down to that human level. Just know that, this is not a decision. It could be coming from your leader. But just know that it's something that they had to do with the company and where the company is going. And so for me, like I've been laid off before. I've been laid off multiple times, like I said, due to the economy. It
Right.
wasn't easy, but I think that's where you as an individual, and has to be on you. If you want it, then you need to go out there and you need to network. You need to get out there and ask people to go to coffee with you, have a drink with you, be open to doing like um, quick get to know you meetings with folks. Like search LinkedIn. It's a good tool and a resource for you to use.
Right.
So, expand your network as much as possible.
And with that, we are over time, 15 minutes over time. I just want to thank you, Alana, so much
Well,
for
thanks for
for
having me.
providing a lot of insight here. And you can see in the comments, many people really appreciate your time. If people want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
Find me on LinkedIn. It's Alahna Anderson. Please connect with me. Shoot me a message. I may be slow. Like I said, I'm a mom and I work, but I will do my best to answer your questions.
Yeah. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Alana, for joining, and speak to
Yeah.
you all soon. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Take care.